respect that matters in this damn world. Self-respect.
I've been offered a gig, a couple of gigs, 3 or 4 gigs, to work with Monique in LA, in Brooklyn, in Houston, and I turned them down because I didn't think it would work. So after talking to a lot of people, and one of the very people in this room about how things are different, 2 of the very people in this room, as a matter of fact, and how things are different, and look at, how things are coming around, I decided it would be wrong for me not to give somebody a chance based on things that they'd never done to me. That would have been wrong to me. And when she talks, if she goes on her diatribe and she talks about me having my feet under her table, that was at her invitation. I was doing a gig in Greenbelt, Maryland. She lived in Baltimore. She was having a fight party. It was, I think, Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson. And sure enough, I came to her table at her invitation. And it was a wonderful time. As a matter of fact, it was based on that interaction, along with talking to people, I decided that I would do these gigs. I decided I would do it. And now I know what Tyler Perry knows. I know what Lee Daniels knows. I know what Oprah knows. I know what Steve Harvey knows. I know what Charlamagne the God knows. I know what Netflix knows. Saying yes to Monique is an occupational hazard. Now, we're playing a gig in Detroit this weekend. I know I'm going on at 9:45. I leave the hotel. I get there around 9. Monique had just gotten there. She's supposed to be there at 8:40. She had just gotten there, gone at 8:40. She got there at 8:38. What Monique was trying to do was to slow walk the show. She didn't end up getting on for 30 minutes. The oldest trick in the world is, if I want to change the order and I don't have merit, I'll try to make people wait so long that everybody gets nervous and go, please, just go on so we can avoid a conflict. That didn't happen. Monique got on stage. Monique actually felt like she had merit. She would have done 1 of 3 things. Either she would have took it up with the promoter, and she did, and the promoter said, we're going on, and whether you go on or not, that's a different thing. You would have not done it, but she knew she had to get on stage, or she would have been in breach of contract, or she would have come to talk to me. She didn't ever, and I emphatically emphasize this, she never once talked to me. I haven't seen Monique in years. I didn't see her at the venue before, after, or during. I haven't spoken or seen Monique. So if you really thought that you had a legitimate contract dispute, you would have come to me and said, hey, I have this contract and you had this contract. Notice not one thing on that contract, not one person she has on that contract, not one thing happened. Do you know why? Because it wasn't legitimate. And she goes on stage and she proceeds to eviscerate me. Not just me, but Steve Harvey, the sexual, my wife, my dog later on in subsequent conversation. Let me ask you something. What did any of that have to do with an alleged contract dispute? What did Steve Harvey have to do with your contract? What did I have to do with your contract? What did my dog have to do with your contract? What does my wife have to do with your contract?
How would I know? I haven't seen the fucking thing yet.
You wrote your contract, you and your daddy. You proceeded to say things that were so patently insulting that it was galling. It was galling. You asked in subsequent conversations why I have a dog, a support dog, what kind of person has a support dog. That is an act of love which you know very little about. You proceeded to assault my sexuality. You have the temerity to assault someone's sexuality, a man's sexuality, given who you lay next to. None of that had anything to do with alleged contract dispute. You could have taken that up with a lawyer. You would have gotten out. You could have not gone on stage, but you knew you didn't have a valid contract. And you do what you always have done. You tried to weaponize black femininity. You tried to turn that audience against me. You tried to burn everything down. Like you do all the time. Who calls Netflix and thinks I can get $10 million because I did the Queens of Comedy? Who thinks you can get on stage and still live off that? I was a king of comedy. You never hear me talking about it because in this business, like any other, it isn't what you have done, it's what you do. That show was one I signed on to do. I made the quintessential mistake, the horrible mistake that like Tyler Perry, like Lee Daniels, like Oprah, like all these people of saying yes to you. And it is an occupational hazard. It is my fault. I have learned my lesson. A terrible couple of weeks where people have been slain in Buffalo, where people have been slain, kids are getting slain in school.
This happens every so often for them, but this happens every day for us.
And people had come to a comedy show to get away from all of their problems. You besieged them with yours. The one contract that isn't in dispute is the one that the audience had with us to entertain them. But every single time, more and more, you spend half of your time talking about your grievances and what you didn't get and who did this to you. Listen, when you burn things up and you sit back to watch the results of them, she's literally set that stage on fire, said the most incendiary things ever, and I had to go on stage. If she has the temerity to call me a coward would have left. A coward would have said, I can't go. You didn't even want to go on when you had a contract that you knew not to be true. You made up this whole narrative that you knew not to be true, and you played that out in front of the audience. And then I had to go on behind you. And you know what you did? You sat back and you tried to watch your damage. You set the stage on fire and you watched what you've done. You know who does that? Arsonists do that. Arsonists set shit on fire and try to see the damage it rise. But I blame myself because I know now what I didn't before. Saying yes to you is an occupational hazard, one I will not repeat. I don't blame you. I wish you well. But when you do the things you do, when everything's about you, when you're vitriolic, when you have all these fights with all of these entities, it is you. Precious was not a movie. Precious was an autobiography. That is who you are, literally.
A contract and a deal memo.
May I help you with that?
Yes,
sorry,
Daddy. Yes.
Please forgive.
Go on, take your time.
So, as not to freestyle, I pulled up the difference between the two. This will give you it in a nutshell. A memorandum of understanding, or the deal memo that D.L. Hughley presented to the people. It says, a memorandum of understanding is a document used to articulate an agreement between two or more parties. The document is likely to detail the scope of the agreement, the length of the agreement, and the state how the agreement can be terminated. A memorandum of understanding is often used before parties are ready to make a formal, let me repeat that, a memorandum of understanding is used before parties are often used before parties are ready to make a formal agreement. Parties can use a memorandum of understanding to outline expectations and responsibilities before a full agreement has been reached. Unlike contracts, however, a memorandum of understanding is not intended to be a legally binding agreement. As a result, parties can typically avoid the agreement with no legal consequences.
With all due respect, that don't make a lot of sense.
Let me repeat that, and I'm gonna break it down in layman's terms. When they say unlike contracts, however, a memorandum of understanding, which is what DL provided the community with,
Yes.
is not intended to be a legally binding agreement. By legally binding, that means that if you were to try to sue for what was not on a memorandum of understanding, there are no signatures. It is not legally binding.
But you can relate to that, can't you? Right?
And the agreement, because he made the statement, oh, that came from his company. Well, the MOU came from UTA, which, as it says here,
Racking my brain, but I can't even begin to imagine why you'd make up something like this.
see, one of the key differences between a memorandum of understanding and a legal contract is enforceability. That means the key difference between a contract and a memorandum of understanding is enforceability. Contracts are created when two or more parties intend to create a legally enforceable agreement. Parties enter into contracts after an offer has been accepted with consideration. Parties to contracts are legally obligated to comply with the terms and conditions of the agreement. I'll repeat.
Hey.
I'll repeat. It says, parties to contracts are legally obligated to comply with the terms and conditions of the agreement. If a term or condition of a contract is breached, parties will face legal consequences.
Do you understand what I am saying to you?
So, what does that mean? The documentation, hence the performance agreement that Monique provided you with, is a legally binding contract, which is the reason why, if you looked at the bottom of the contract, you saw initials on both sides, one from the promoter, one from our side.
I think the kid's telling the truth.
And I want to address something too, because I want y'all to watch how people like D.L. Hughley will throw smoke and mirrors to try to distract from what it really is. If you watch the video of what I said, if you watch that video, I didn't say anything insulting in reference to that man's family, nor his beautiful wife. What I said is I feel sorry for your family. I feel sorry for your wife. Now, the other part that I said, y'all know what it was, and I'm going to leave it on the stage.
I feel sorry for your wife having to perform a sexual act on a coward.
That's exactly.
How do you perform a sexual act on a coward? There is nothing that was said about your wife.
Nothing.
Your family.
Nothing.
It was directed specifically to you.
Why do you have to talk to me like that all the time?
So let me be clear again. For all the shade droppers, tea spillers, candy bar biters, Saturday night, D.L. Hughley was going to get his ass handed to him because through the years, I've heard this man have a lot to say about me. And what the type of person I am, if y'all don't know by now, I wasn't going on nobody's radio show talking about how I felt towards D.L. Hughley. I wasn't going on nowhere. I was going to make sure the night that I spoke about D.L. Hughley, I wanted D.L. Hughley to be there. Now, I want to address something else. And everything I'm saying, please find it out for yourself. I want to address something. When D.L. Hughley says, and then she brought in Steve Harvey. I watched D.L. Hughley and Steve Harvey sit on his show and lie.
D.L. show.
On D.L. show and lie. I watched Steve Harvey say to D.L., we had to edit the show because Monique was saying some crazy stuff and we had to protect her. And then D.L. says, yeah, man, you was just trying to protect her. And then Steve says, yeah, man, well, let me ask this question. When did they get into the black woman protection business? So that's why I said Steve Harvey. When y'all start standing up and you're fighting against a sister that's saying, you've got to treat us fairly. You're fighting against a sister that's saying, I earned that position as headliner. Didn't nobody give it to me? I earned that position. You got a sister that's saying, listen, I'm, as D.L. Hughley would say, oh, she just selfish and thinking about herself. Anybody that's selfish, D.L. Hughley, would not take a 13-year hit in their career. See, if I was selfish, I would have taken the $500,000 that Tyler Perry tried to offer.
To be quiet about it.
To be quiet and make it go away. If I was selfish, D.L. Hughley, I would have had the conversation privately. See, I know the moment I say it out loud, I know the ridicule is coming. I'm sorry, Daddy. The way D.L. Hughley is playing it is as if I just came from out of left field and just jumped on this man. No, D.L. See, what you can't erase are the interviews. You can't erase your words. Those are your words. You can't erase calling me mentally ill. You can't erase calling me all of these slick things, brother. Now you're trying to trick our community, and I want y'all to do your homework. If you remember the Super Bowl show that happened in LA, there was a time that D.L. Hughley was on that show. And then there was a time that he just wasn't.
But you were the what on that show?
Headliner. I was the headliner on that show. All these other times that he speaks about, it never came across our desk. So stop trying to pull the wool over the community's eyes. And what I would ask of the community, what I would beg of us, stop being so quick to jump on the bus, whichever way it goes down the street. Be brave enough to listen to what it really is, not your emotions, not what you, listen to the facts of what it is. Go back and listen to what I said. I feel sorry for your family. I feel sorry for your wife.
I think the kid's telling the truth.
Listen to what I said. Listen to what I said when that man said, would your husband, or that woman said, would your husband rather sleep with these people? Ricky Smiley, would you be offended if someone said that about your loved ones?
I don't want to
How about you, Roland Martin?
Look, man, it's a joke. You gotta take a joke. They were hitting other people in the room as well.
Would you be offended if someone asked you that about your wife? How about you, Kim Whitley?
I haven't been myself.
And he was also speaking in reference to wanting to give Monique a chance, and his people have warned him against it, as if he had some sort of prophecy seeing into the future ability. Let's clarify why he felt that way.
Why did he feel that way?
How would I know? I haven't seen the fucking thing yet.
And DL, let me address you on this, brother. When you say it's what you're doing right now, see, you've made people believe I've stopped being a stand-up comedian. I've never stopped being a stand-up comedian, baby. I've been out there on that road doing my thing the whole time. So stop trying to put a false narrative out there. That's Steve Harvey's big word. Stop trying to put a false narrative out there that, oh, I just disappeared. No, brother, Hollywood doesn't stop the show. You know that, DL. You've been in those comedy clubs. As a matter of fact, there were times you was leaving and I was coming. We didn't stop doing what we do, so why ever would you try to feed that into the community?
Billie Jean, take my love. Billie Jean, take my love. Get him in, I am the one. Gee, take my sound.